Hi, and welcome back to In the Process of Healing podcast. This is kind of exciting. Yes, this week we have a guest. Thank you for tuning in last week. I really do appreciate it. As I said, I just want this to feel like organic, like totally authentic as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know, in my personal opinion, I feel like I watch a lot of podcasts and they're amazing, full with information, full with like entertainment value, but I just not all the time, but I feel like that bit of disconnect when I notice that like it feels like too much production value. So we're gonna try something new in the process of healing for season 2. Like the term I'm going with is like being a fly on the wall, essentially.
Yeah.
And just like sitting into a conversation. I think body language and talking can also really heighten the understanding of a conversation a lot of the time, right?
That was one of my feedbacks from when I watched the first season.
But that was a lot of people's feedbacks. Was like, oh, we want to see these guys. We want to get to know them. So this is us getting to know each other. So this is really cool.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Listen, I've never done anything like this, so let's just get to it.
I really do appreciate this. Just a quick heads up. I have questions on my iPad, but I do know what to do. I do remember the questions. It's just in case you see me like looking, that's what that is. But you feel good?
Yeah,
you
I feel ready. Let's get this started.
Okay, so this episode's topic is mostly about immigration, which is kind of like a biggie, I think, for the both of us.
For the both of us.
For the both of us, for
you
sure.
more recently, but
me more recently, but it definitely does play a part in like the decisions that we make, right?
Absolutely.
Moving forward. So we're gonna start with like the question I asked everyone, even from season 1.
Okay.
What is healing to you? What does healing mean?
I was like waiting, and I'm like,
dang! Hey, rewind! Damn, girl, I've been out of practice. I did mention it has been like over a year.
It has been a while.
Let's take a step
actually.
back.
More
Than a year.
Yeah.
Lot of G's. Okay. Let's take a step back. Hi, I'm Chris Shetty. I am the host of In the Process of Healing. This is my wonderful guest, Carlos.
Hey guys.
You probably have heard of him like on like projects I've done as of recently, which is really cool. Such a true friend. Like no like generally like such a true friend. I'm really thankful for the support, the just the human that he is, and I feel like the more that we talk, the more you will understand what I mean. Just such a pure spirit, and I do mean that like honestly, like I think it's one thing to be like, oh, you're so pure, but like genuinely, like your intentions mean well, and they really do like make monumental difference.
Listen, like, well, thank you, I appreciate all of that, but like this is like I can say the exact same thing about you. You have been like one of the most genuine people I know. Like, let's remind the viewers we only met like what two and a half years ago.
Yeah.
But like this guy right here is a solid guy, and honestly, like I cannot, like I'm gonna be serious. Like I don't think I can imagine my life without him. So
do you know what the maddest thing is? Yeah. Also the reason why, like I didn't do videos initially because I was like, I'm an awkward fuck. So now every time you're gonna see my face, like
we'll both be awkward fucks.
Okay. Question. Damn. Okay. But in all seriousness, what does healing mean to you?
Well, to me, I guess healing is just developing yourself to a better person than you were yesterday, right?
Okay.
I think all of us, we go through like a bunch of like traumas or like some sort of challenges in our lives, and I don't know, like all of these I like to imagine that happen to us for a reason. Anything that happens in our lives happen for a reason. And I feel like, you know, we're put on this earth for a specific reason and a specific purpose. And to me, healing is being able to get through these challenges, these trivials, as you know.
Yeah.
Life be trying us on a daily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I think healing is just becoming a better person that you were, or like aiming to be a better person than you were yesterday.
You use the word better person, and I feel like in this journey I've taken since moving to Canada, right, is defining what is better. Because what you maybe dreamt of what's better, or what you thought might be a betterment of you, was actually more of a demise. Because you're chasing after something that's like
not there yet.
Yeah, that's not there yet. Or you
I
might
see what you're saying.
Not saying that like my lead up question was gonna be, what is being a better person then? How would you define being better? Because is better an improvement? Does that mean that it's like, how do you quantify better, right? Or how do you signify? Is it more of a feeling, would you say?
Perhaps. It could be like, you know, I feel like it could be a mix of both. Like, listen, like, in like all of us, we all have like dreams, we all have aspirations, but we also have a lot of intention to do good to other people, right?
Yeah.
I personally, like, for me, and like Cal's, like, I feel like I always ask you this, like, oh my god, like, am I a good person, or am I this and this, or am I being a bad person? That's just me. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I think not necessarily a measure, but like an indication that you're what we say a better person. You know what? Now that I'm saying that out loud, I feel
sorry, that was the put you on the spot. It was also to be like, I think we do this a lot. Like, you know, as you know, I was in the education sector. I guess still am. We always say to young people, like, the only way to be is happy. Or like, you want to make yourself happy again, but why can't they feel sad?
But
why can't they feel that emotion? Because that emotion might better them. Like, do you know what I mean? Quote unquote, better them and like understand their feeling. Because we're so quick to be like, okay, let's rectify this.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, you know, if we have all these trivials and like these challenges that we get through, what makes us, you know, a better improved version of ourselves is having not necessarily like process that completely, because, you know, life is a process
of healing, bro.
But I think like being able to how do you say, like being able to, I guess, manage,
yeah,
right, manage, like, and learn from it. I think actually there it is. I think if we learn something from a lesson today or yesterday, then we're one step better, aren't we?
I like that. Okay, I like that. Okay. If we learned something from yesterday, yeah, no, I hear that. Do you know what? It's like, it's amazing having these kind of conversations, because I think more or less I don't know, maybe it's the circle I surround myself with, because I feel like hopefully eventually I will have guests that, you know, I don't necessarily have an immediate contact or connection with, so then I can get an opposing view. I've always said that, like, I think it's a testament to the way I was raised. It's always like, question the status quo, right? Like the idea of like going, is that right? Does that make sense? Were you thinking of High School Musical?
No, I didn't know where I was going. But I feel like you and I, sometimes we do get in heated arguments about certain views, right?
It's good though.
It's good.
It's good.
I feel like this is like where we can learn from each other's perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Like, what were we talking about recently? I think we were talking
politics.
About like,
well, it's about politics, bro.
We were talking about like that. I think that promise of like that. well, I guess in this case, the Canadian dream, right?
Yeah.
And then we were talking about
It still
like,
led into politics, like the idea of like
it's all propaganda, isn't it?
But is it? This is the thing. It's like, it once again. It's like you think you're doing something better, or you think that you're improving a situation, but you can only take it from your own experiences, right? Your own life experiences. And I feel like I caught myself the other day. Like I was having a conversation with one of my old students, and I was just like, take it or leave it, but like in my experience, this is what happened for me. It might not happen for you by all means, but because you don't want to, or at least in my case, I don't want to see someone suffer that way. I don't want someone to be like put under a thumb. Like avoid that by just being firm with who you are. And it's interesting. It is very interesting because it's like you want to pass on all that knowledge that you have onto someone else, and I think.
Especially when you're in a position that of like this is a former student, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a position of like teaching somebody or
like as an educator. But I think we all fundamentally are educators. Like my mom would always say, my mom, first season, shout out. She's an educator, and she would always say, anyone in the building, that being the, as you guys like to say, janitor, as like from the teacher and assistants, we're all educators, we're all helpers. Even the parents that come in to volunteer, they're also there. Like they're gonna bring another aspect that you're like, oh, I never thought of that, right? I did say the topic of this podcast for today was immigration.
Yes.
Now, I know for me, in ways, immigrating to another country really did.
I mean, me too, especially as a younger child.
As a younger child, yeah, and that's why I wanted to know. Like, as a young child, I know I kind of know somewhat of the story.
I mean, I can
talk through.
Yeah. So I guess to provide the audience some context, like, so I'm from the Philippines. I was born in Quezon City. Basically grew up there for the first 10 years of my life.
Basically.
Yeah.
You did?
I don't know why basically. And then I remember actually, I don't think I've gone into this detail, but I don't mind going into detail. Like I remember my mom, like me, I think we were setting the dinner table like back home in the Philippines. And my mom just randomly dropped it, was like, what if you moved to Canada?
Yeah.
Right? We're speaking in Tagalog, by the way. To me and Juan, my brother. I thought Miguel was there. I think it was
another brother.
Yeah, another brother. But yeah, I remember, like, obviously, like, I think I started to get a feeling, which is what I know now as anxiety. And I think, yeah, I remember I was so opposed to it because, you know, I have my friends in the Philippines.
Of course.
I'm just so used to that kind of
lifestyle
and going to my school. And for me, like, I'm not a big fan of change. I really am not. And I feel like that's still a challenge that I struggle with today. I guess that's part of healing, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
But
you're acknowledging it.
I guess that's my first step.
The first step, yeah.
But yeah, I remember like I was so against it, and honestly, like I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I threw a lot of tantrums over this. And
God, there's one that I just want you to say. That's why I'm like,
is it the one where like I made my dad come with me to the school?
No, that one.
Oh, okay.
The suitcase one.
Where he like unpacked everything. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. As I said, I threw a lot of tantrums. But eventually, you know, like I think deep down I knew that there was nothing I can do about it. I was 10 years old, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember as we like left our home, like my family and I, we prayed. I do remember that very vividly before we got into the car. And our old babysitter was there to kind of send us off. And yeah, that was it. Like,
may I ask what that prayer felt like in that moment? Was that like a let go, or was that like holding on to hope?
It was definitely not necessarily like holding a hope, but more so like I guess a hope for a better future. But I do remember it was very surreal for me. Like, yeah, like like I grew up Catholic and I still am Catholic. Um, like well, a lot of Filipinos are Catholic. Like, but yeah, I mean, like my family and I, we would pray like before meal, like for dinner, before dinner, and all of that. But this was the first time we kind of prayed in a different, in a non-routine way, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like before it was like, okay, we pray before dinner, we pray at church, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like this was the first time like we're actually praying for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to me that's when it hit me that like this is a big life-changing moment, right? Because when you're a kid, you kind of just go with the flow.
Well, you go with the flow, whatever your parents tell you to do. Yeah.
But this was like, oh shoot, like this is it, right? I don't know if I'm gonna
This is
see
the
my
moment.
neighbors again.
Yeah.
Like I remember our neighbors were also out trying to like send us off as well as like we got into the van with our luggage and all our boxes and
Oh my god.
yeah, I mean it was a surreal experience for sure as a child. I don't know. I've always been curious how my brothers have felt with this. They're older, but that was my truth. Like as a child,
It's interesting. Like how do I explain this? Like I never moved. Like I feel like I moved a lot in aspects of my life. That being in sports, gymnastics, dancing. I moved a lot in schools, which we spoke about in season 1. But not like location. I was always based. Not I say always based in the UK, not necessarily, but I was always based in like a Western mentality.
But now I wanna throw a question to you.
Oh gosh.
No, because you mentioned something interesting. Like you said, you moved a lot, like locationally for like school, for your gymnastics, all of that. For me, like I didn't really. I was only 10. I didn't really do that as much of moving. I was, for me, it was very routine to go to school, go back home. I didn't really like, I wasn't hanging out at like my friend's place. I think I was too young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but you are more used to that relocation thing. Did that make it easier for you to kind of move to Canada? Because for me, since I was such in a routine, I think that's one like
it's like breaking that.
You know what I mean? Like breaking that routine. I think that's where I struggled. But I'm curious now what you.
No, what I was gonna touch on is the fact that like it must be so different moving with a family to being solo.
True. That's another.
So I feel like I've always, in the nicest way, like I spoke about with my mom, is that it's not like a running joke, it's not a bad thing, but I was very much so the black sheep of my family. So like I wasn't like, I don't know how to say this in like a whatever way, but I just wasn't bothered. Like I was so excited by the idea of exploring the world that it never crossed my mind that, oh darn, like I'm leaving people. Or like it's like I'm going to do this thing to elevate my life, not necessarily improve my life, or learn something new, or learn someone's culture. Because I spent a lot of my time like traveling Europe, or like being in Spain, or like just doing stuff by myself. Like I made this joke today. I was like, oh darn, I was like, Mom, do you remember this? This is so crazy. Like I think I always had that like explorative aspect to me. And I just remember one time, oh god, like I didn't tell anyone. I just like booked a ticket. Just kind of how it ended up here. I just booked a ticket, and like literally that morning of, I said, oh, like I have nothing to do these next couple of days, so I'm just gonna book a ticket to Brussels, because that's what you just do, cash. And then like didn't tell anyone, didn't think anything of it, packed my bags and just went. And I was there for like 7-10 days. Like seriously, I booked everything like just on the spot. And then my mom calls being like, oh, could you just come and help me with this thing? I'm like, oh, I can't, I'm away. It's like, okay. And I'm like, no, for real, I'm away. So stop being silly. She's like, okay, like, video call me right now. I'm like, I'm literally away. She's like, oh my God, why didn't you tell anyone? Like, but I don't think it's ever in like bad intentions. It's more so to be like, there's so much more out there. Yeah. And so for me, like, it always like is mind-boggling to me when like people don't want to know about other people's culture. People don't want to know about another country's history, or
especially when they're already in a country with all that diversity, right? I think this is another for me when I moved, right? Like I think a big culture shock. What was the other culture?
I get what you mean.
But you know what? Because I grew up for the first 10 years of my life, like looking like left or right, I see people that look like me. Right? And people like speak your language, whatever. And I mean, yeah, we had Disney Channel. Like I remember like watching like, you know, that's
the Raven. I knew you were gonna say that.
Life. Like, yeah, but like that was the extent of my my knowledge about other cultures and people that don't look like me, right? And it really was a big culture shock when I moved. And I remember this specifically, like, so like in the Philippines, we have home clothes, right?
Okay.
I feel like that I'm really gonna touch on culture.
Okay.
Like home clothes that you would wear like just at home, right? Yeah. Like, and it's not necessarily like, you know, you're not done up, but like sometimes like we would go to the corner store to like in like our raggedy clothes and like go buy bread or whatever. And I remember like going to like our first like couple days in Canada. Sorry, I'm like completely hijacked.
No. We're here for this.
The first couple of days that I moved to Canada, I went to the meat shop and I was wearing my home clothes. And I think like that's when I felt like culturally shocked. Like people are dressed nice just to go to the shop. Like I don't know, like shit like that. And I'm like, I feel like, oh shit, like what am I wearing? You know, like, and that's when I first became aware that I was an other.
But you know, that's crazy that you're saying that. I think it's the awareness. Because even for me, like, I'm from the UK. As some of you may know, I'm from London, UK, which is supposed to be the epicenter of diversity. Yes, however, I still got culture shocked when I came here.
Well, it's a different way of doing things, right?
It's a completely different way of doing things. Like, in England, like, we joke about it. We're like, oh, I'm from South London. Repping South still. But, but like, I'll be like, oh, I'm from South London. Oh, this person's from East. And sometimes you just don't cross that boundary. I know some people that are full-fledged South Londoners. They will not go to East. They will not go to North. And it's like no joke for them. So then like those cultures are sometimes, sometimes, a lot of the time are divided. And then there's no like crossover. So then you stay in like your own little communities. Yeah. And like my analogy that I've been using a lot is that I get on the underground. Bear in mind, I'm saying this is my perspective. I want to make that very clear as well, because for some people, they may feel different or where you've come from, and I do appreciate that. But in my perspective, I have been in situations where I'm on the underground, we call it the TTC here. The subway. The subway. And I'll be the only black person on the train. And I used to travel really far, like from South to Brent Cross. If you know where Brent Cross is, you know that's fucking far. By myself as a teenager to just train. And sometimes the anxiety of knowing like this could go wrong. Like where's my closest, like where do I know in London that's close to someone that I can get to safely, or like, you know, but in Toronto, bro, you like get on the carriage, you're definitely one of 10 that are black, you're one of 10 that are, you know, South Asian, you're one of 10 that are white, you're one of, like, it was so mind-boggling for me. And I was like, whoa, do you know what the biggest culture shock for me was?
What?
Are you ready? This is the madness. And I know this is the thing that made me so excited. I was like, what? Acceptance? It was when I saw a police officer and they had a Sikh uniform. Like,
like the headpiece.
The headpiece and they had the emblem. Bro, when I tell you, do you know how gassed I was like, wow! Like, in my heart of hearts, I was like, that's phenomenal. I will completely acknowledge that I've never really spoken to someone that's in law enforcement that dresses as such. However, from the outside looking in, it looked very accepting. It looked like he was leading the group, in fact.
Listen, I mean, I feel like I would definitely be shocked to see someone in a Sikh headpiece police uniform as well, because like, you know, especially someone who didn't have Sikh people back at home in the Philippines.
Yeah.
But you know, for them, it's their
work uniform,
right? Like,
but like,
pulling up to work. I feel money for my family.
But it's true. Like, I feel like, unfortunately, I think, in a time period that I grew up when I was in London, it wasn't really accepted that way. I knew people that hid their identity. I knew people that was like, yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about my faith. And I love that you talk about your faith. You know, like, I think faith is a beautiful thing. Yes, I'm using that very broadly because I think we're going to get into it later on in the season about faith for sure. But I think it is a very broad spectrum. And I think there is something beautiful about accepting a lot of different faiths. And I think what's done quite beautifully in Canada, at least for me, for what I've seen, or in Toronto, because I've only lived in Toronto, is that I see almost the acceptance. And there's a difference between acceptance and tolerance.
Absolutely.
And do you remember when you told me that? Blew my mind. You're like, oh yeah, at my workplace they have like a designated area for people to go pray.
Yes.
When I tell you, I thought it was in some closet. Like, I'm not even joking. I've been in workplaces where they've offered a closet. Obviously, you pray wherever you've been given, but they offered a closet. When you showed me, I said, wow.
This was when I used to work in public accounting, and I used to go to one of my clients, right?
Yeah.
And my clients had, like, as I said, like a specific room for like praying, like an actual prayer room. And it was so accommodating because like it had like, well, it can have like a Bible, it can have like the Quran, and then I remember specifically there's because I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, like when Muslims pray they have to wash their
hands and feet.
Yeah, so they had a whole like sink in there.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? So it's been thought about, right? Like, it's not just, oh, here's a room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it can be like that, which is still it's still something.
It's something, yeah, but
versus nothing.
But then that's what I'm saying. Like, it borderlines the tolerance and acceptance.
Yes.
I think a lot of the time we go, oh, we can tolerate that. We can make it look like we're so accepting. But in this case, at least from what I've seen thus far, it's always like, we accept this. And I'm sure anywhere you go, and I always make this very clear, anywhere you go, there will be some form of regression. Is that the right word to use?
Yeah.
Like, anywhere in the world,
even in like, well, in the major cities, not just in like, you know,
not even just the times. Like, there will always be something.
And I feel like sometimes it's fueled by a lot of context and what's going on around in the world, right?
Yeah,
like,
beautifully said.
Like okay, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like I remember like when during COVID. Yeah. So my mom, thankfully, like my mom is not one of those people that to fuck around with. Like, listen, she will clap back. Yeah. But like I remember specifically, my mom came home once, and you know, like during COVID, there was a lot of like weird shit going on against like Asian people, right? Like here in Canada alone, people got murdered. Like I remember like people be pushing like old elderly Asian like people like on the street and they would die. And that's the kind of intolerant, like, you know what I mean? And that's not even intolerance, that's disgusting. Like, sorry, I don't know why I'm laughing. This is like a coping mechanism or something.
But it's something to be worried about, right?
But yes, like honestly, like I'd be worried. Like like this, like in that story where my mom went to the bakery and this man was just like, and I will say this white man was like being so close to my mom. So my mom respectfully was like, "Do you mind just standing back? There's a pandemic going on, you know?"
Yeah.
And then he was like, and we all know what he meant to say when he said this, but he's like, if you don't like it, then like go like leave.
Yeah.
And there, I know he just said leave, but like
The intent
the
was
impact
that.
was go back to your country.
Do you know,
Like,
so, as I said, it's not always glitz and glam.
never.
But
But we'll take what we can get.
We can take what we get, but you know this, you were there. I've had racial response, right? But with me, I find this funny, is that I think exteriorly, you're like, okay, it's not from here, whatever. And then you hear my voice. And then it's like, go back to your country, what? Another, like, a Western, I want to say something, but I'm not going to go there, but like,
is it because you have an English accent?
because I have an English accent, right?
Okay, but like, what if you had like an African accent, an Asian accent?
And that is the problem.
Right?
We assume that, like, to be quite frank, the countries I'm from, Ghana, Jamaica, beautiful countries, right? And this is what worries me. So to tie it all back in on like healing and immigrating, I think we've been taught or we've been assimilated to believe that these like certain places provide that, how do I say it, like elevation or like that improvement in your life. And I feel like for a lot of people would say that I grew up in what would be a very privileged city. I understand the privilege that was given to me when living in those cities, 100%. However, was I privileged as an individual, that being my race, my background? A lot of the time I got told, oh, where are you from? Where was you born? Okay, I was born in London, I was born in England. Oh, okay, no. Where are you really from? That sentence alone, can be so devastating.
Another one. Oh, your English is so good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks. I learned it while I was in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Where are you really from? Like,
but see, even in those circumstances, like, I feel like language is such a beautiful thing because it's something that could be so easily done in terms of like just learning simple words. Just say thank you. How do you say hello? Like if there's a language I'm introduced to, those are like usually the first thing I go ask that person. How do you say hello? How do you say thank you? How do you say please? Because if I'm gonna go and meet your family, I want to make sure I can say those things. And I don't know if that's coming from like parents that grew up elsewhere, but like in my head it's like, okay, these are the things that you have to do when you're entering someone else's space. But because I have to remember, I am an immigrant. Fundamentally,
we're all immigrants.
We're all immigrants.
We are on indigenous land, right?
I like how you mentioned it. Okay, I like that. Don't explain that, because I don't think many people know
What?
about the indigenous land of Canada.
Yeah, well, see, okay, well, as an immigrant, right, as a settler that came to settle on this land and to come work and all that, it, like, this whole idea of colonization and, erasing, I guess, history and indigenous cultures was so foreign to me. Like,
Same.
this is, like, this, you won't go to the Philippines and local news and hear about this.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like the only time Canada's dark history, that they like to say, on the indigenous history is when they found all those what do you call those unmarked graves of those kids who've passed on because of these residential schools, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, not as they say, it happened,
was.
and it's like, what, the count is like 700 kids and counting or something crazy like that,
And it's very recent.
and these are reported. There's so many other people that didn't get to have their stories told. And I think that's one thing that a lot of, I mean, listen, I'm not indigenous. I try to learn where I can, but it's really heartbreaking to hear about this, especially as an immigrant, right? And like,
if they can just like almost erase
Mhm.
who you are, your identity, essentially.
And like it's crazy because like, you know, especially coming outside of the West, like you think of the Western world and like honestly like how it's taught to us is like it's ran by white people,
Yeah.
right? And it's it's been made like that by them.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not like, listen, I'm not pointing no fingers or whatever, but like, it's made in such a way that privileges like a certain
Right.
type of people,
Yeah.
right?
And sometimes I do believe, and I like, you know, I feel like you may not know you have it. Like, I think there's privileges. I'm trying to be very mindful of my words here. Is that yes, I do believe people get privilege more than others. Period. Point blank. And I will also say, Caucasian people tend to get that privilege. Yes, I will say in different areas, as we've had this conversation before, fairer skin. It like there's like this ambition to have fairer skin, which makes you more beautiful.
But
I think
where did this
it
come from?
Yeah.
Right? In the Philippines, like, okay, when I used to live there, so many advertisements of like commercials of soap that whitens your skin, brightens your skin.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? In a country like the Philippines, I can only guess.
But this is the thing, it's like, but then why do we idolize this move, right? Because then this is like, I guess, the complex I struggle with, and this is an open discussion. If you have a point of view, please honestly message in, leave the comment, and let's
It's
start
part
this
of healing, right?
It's part of the healing, right?
To learn like the different perspectives.
I feel like this is not to like gun me down or whatever. Like, if you have like an opinion, like let's share it. Let's share it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it like in a politeful manner, obviously.
Yes.
And there's no right or wrong with this, but I do think from people that are what's the right word? What's like people that are no, what's it called? Help me here. People that are other color. No, that's not what I'm gonna say. Other ethnicity. What do you call it?
Other people of color.
Minorities. When you're a minority, you're living that minority experience, right? So I think there's an understanding to tell your story and to tell your truth and your perspective on it, right? So for me, I can never understand that. Like, I can only sympathize and like hear you out, and you can be like, this is what I've experienced as an Asian man in these, you know, experiences and these places.
And likewise, I can never say that like what being black in this Western world would be like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can sympathize, I can learn more, but I've never lived that. Like, I'm not black. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
so I feel like sometimes it's just good to just hear it out. If you do have a point of view as a person that is Caucasian or fairer skin or whatever it may be, speak your truth. I think it's all, but this is where it gets. I think we don't talk about this part.
let's be respectful.
Respectful. One is being respectful. That I feel like, in my opinion, what I see here is that people are willing to have that conversation here, but it's very like
It can get ugly real
it can get ugly,
especially in the
real quick,
political climate that we're in, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like that's what's so unfortunate about, you know, what's going down south. And honestly, sometimes even here in Canada, like, politics get so like involved in these kind of discourse regarding race, regarding cultures, and all of this. Like, it's so unfortunate, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the people that go into bashing mode on like these kind of topics, I think it comes from a place of hurt. And I have to believe that it comes from a place of hurt or a place of like feeling misunderstood. Because if you are a viewer that's watching right now, for me at least, I can only speak for myself, but the most times that I get frustrated, I wouldn't say I'm an angry person, but I mostly do get frustrated when I feel misunderstood. And I think a lot of it boils down to is that a lot of people want to speak their truths all at the same time, but they're not wanting to hear it or listen. And that's going back to season 1, and that's the one thing I said, like, where my mom was like, love you to pieces. I feel like even people that are close with you, and this is the example I'm giving, like sometimes like we think we're listening, but we're not hearing the person. Correct. And sometimes we're hearing what we want to hear, but we're then not listening to what they have to say. So it's like, it's a balancing act, right? Yes. It's a balancing act of like understanding that, okay, I've expressed this is my point of view. Now, can you hear my point of view? You may not understand it, but you hearing it, and how you gonna effectively respond in this manner that allows me to feel safe, also in my space, or how can we coexist in this space, feeling safe together, right? And I think that's where it boils down to fundamentally. Like I guess people call it utopia or whatever, and I would love to live in a utopia. Like people always laugh at me, like, but why can't we? Why can't we have utopia? We could. It's literally a choice. It boils down to a single choice.
But it's a collective choice, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna need to have the same
choice.
Like,
yeah.
But unfortunately, there's people that
don't want that.
That want that, and like,
and it's a bit of a shame.
It is a shame. It's disappointing, right?
But I guess who's it disappointing for? Because like, if it's benefiting them, and this is where it goes back to being like, okay, if you're saying I'm learning from the day before, let's use your analogy of like, you're gonna better yourself each day. If you're betting yourself to benefit yourself, is that a good person? Because then that changes things. Because you are becoming a better person for you, but it benefits you in a way that might demonetize another.
But is that your like? I think you gotta redefine better person. Is it, as you said, better for you or better for others?
Yeah.
Or better for all.
But this is why I feel like I started this podcast. It's like, I want to better my knowledge. I want to better the self of knowing, and to better viewers that may not have this aspect or understanding or want to. I'm not saying I have the answers. Mind you, I'm not saying I have the answers, but I do want to start a conversation, or at least allow for voices to be heard. And I think immigrating allows that. Immigrating allows you to go somewhere else, talk your experience, provide your knowledge that you can provide to a country that can make them grow. You know, monumentally, that being in the economy, that being like monetized wise, like, and then also benefiting from it. And I think that's the bit that we sometimes miss out, is that we give all this knowledge to certain places and we localize it, and it becomes our little secret. It becomes our little thing, right? And then like when we've got all the little nooks and crannies of it, we then capitalize on it. And then we forget about the people that helped you get there. And like, I would say that about like gentrification, and I'm talking about South London. And we know what area I'm from. So I will say that really, like, with chess, that yes, it may be great, but we're pushing out the people that fundamentally made that culture, that fundamentally made that place the spark that it was.
Listen, like you know, when I was a little bit more newer to Canada, we lived in Parkdale in Toronto. We live in Parkdale, we live in Jane West End, and these are traditionally neighborhoods that are like underprivileged, you know, like, and now, like I've only been here, what, 17? No, hold on.
Yeah, that's correct.
My math is not mathing. But like, I've been here since 2010, and since then, there's been a lot. Sorry, 2007.
Bro, I was about to say, this guy's an accountant, by the way.
But yeah, like, I've been here since 2007, and I can say this city has changed a lot. I'm grateful to live in it. Listen, like, I'm not bashing on nobody, but it has like changed a lot, and I feel like, you know, what how this kind of like disadvantages a lot of people is that disadvantage a lot of the lower income people,
Family.
and they get pushed out of the city,
Yeah.
right? And usually these are families of color, you know, the black people in like look what's happening on Eglinton, for example, right? Little Jamaica. A lot of those businesses have either like closed down or like, you know, they're still there. They're, you know, standing strong for whoever's there, but unfortunately, a lot of the businesses there have closed down because of
They just can't keep up with the demands. Yeah.
and more so because of gentrification. Let's just call it for what it is, right? All these condos going up, all of them non-affordable.
Yeah.
Where's everyone supposed to live?
I feel like we do want more for our society, and I really do appreciate that. I really do appreciate that we want to grow, but let's grow together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
the part that's missing.
That's the part
because
that's missing.
They only want a specific group of people
to grow,
and that's where the unfortunate part comes in.
And I think this is like selling the story, right? It's like, okay, these things, if you do this and this is how you're going to obtain this, and you can be part of our exclusive group, right? But sometimes it feels so unattainable because you don't see anyone that looks like you doing that, right? And I feel like, as you know, this, I guess the term like break that generational curse. And I can't remember who said this, so sorry if you can find out who said this, but it's like, it's not a generational curse, it's just a cycle that we're like we've like subscribed to, rather than just being like, okay, I'm gonna try a different way. And I think immigrating, yes, is a way of changing the cycle, trying something new that might just work, that will change that status quo, you know? And in turn, I would say like immigrating definitely had healed me in ways that like, healed me in a lot of ways that I wasn't maybe ready or knew I needed to be ready for. And this is not my first rodeo at this, so this is why it was such a shock to the system. But I think finding the right place for you, because I do think England is the right place for my family, for sure. Like, I can see how that's made them grow as individuals, but it wasn't for me. Do you know what I mean?
And that's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and being okay with that, because you're leaving everything you know, right? And this becomes your new knowing, or your new home,
reality,
or your new reality.
Yeah.
Well, whew, Carlos, that was that was a conversation.
That was a conversation.
That was a conversation. I think I applaud you, because it's not easy always talking about immigrating, because you do get into those topics of race, you do get into those things that may be uncomfortable to talk about. So I really, 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 really do commend you on talking about
it. But hey, like, with that in mind, there's also great things, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, I was, you know, fortunate enough to go to school.
And what did you do? How did you do it?
What?
How did you go to uni on a
scholarship?
A full scholarship, because he's smart.
But like things like that, right? Like,
yeah,
I feel like I wouldn't have had this opportunity if I stayed back home, and I wouldn't even know it. I wouldn't know my full potential, and yeah, of course it sucks at first. I was so against it, but like, I love Canada. I love living in Canada. Like, it's what I call my home. You know, and I think my family also feels the same way. Yeah, like, Philippines will always be like my motherland, right?
Yeah.
And
so
fun fact, guys, I'm actually going back home to the Philippines tomorrow. For the first time.
Yeah.
For the first time, like, since I moved here when I was 10. So that's like
a big step.
17, 18 years ago.
And I feel like that will be a healing of its own. There's going to be a lot of like unpacking to do.
I think so too. And
did someone say season 3 he needs to
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. But yeah, like I think that's why I was telling Cal, is like it's such a interesting such a coincidence, I guess, to have to be on this podcast and talk about immigration and all that, when tomorrow I'll be going full circle, right? Like, yeah, I think I'm very excited. I'm a little nervous, but you know, we're gonna have fun and we're gonna learn a lot. So
we are. I'm so excited. I say we are, but like, yeah, vicariously.
I'm
like,
there in
yeah,
spirit, because
for sure.
You know I'll be FaceTiming you. Come on.
Carlos, thank you so much.
It's my
for
absolute pleasure.
this.
Thank you for having me. I mean,
No.
I've been such a fan since season 1, so
Thanks. They've been waiting. So this is it's a new way, and we're trying it out. We're trying it out. Do you like the new way?
I absolutely love it.
You like the
I'm
new
obsessed
way?
with it. Like,
but honestly, guys, get in the comments. Please talk to me, talk to us, hit us up. Kashanti _ I don't know if you want to provide. You don't have to say
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Go on. It's at Carlos Udarbe. You can.
Lovely.
And I might have some of my artwork coming up soon.
Oh damn!
But
this is an exclusive. I don't even know this.
go on. Like,
Yes,
this is news, but
yeah.
I'm not gonna take away. Go on.
No, don't take this. Okay, we're elevating this podcast. When I tell you, it's about elevating people. Like, I'm not. These are not just words that come out of my mouth. Like, I genuinely want to see everyone succeed. Why can't we all succeed? No, for real. It really like grinds me. Like, why can't we all succeed? Why can't we all reach that goal of like? I don't get why only some of us are like, you know, oh, this is my thing. No, bitch, it's our thing. Like, I don't know. Sorry, I just feel so like strongly about it that we should all just raise each other's voices and we will move further. We can get so much further together as a community. And I think one thing that I was touching base on, like, I think I said in the first podcast that I was struggling with the fact that I feel like there was a lack of community in London. I used to grow up like, sorry, tangent, but quick one. Used to grow up like with neighbors that would like be like, let's go here, let's do that. And then when I moved out, I didn't know who Tim or Bob was. They didn't want to get to know me. And I could feel the hostility the more and more I kept moving around. And then finally I came back here where I felt, oh shit, this is what I was missing. I needed community. The amount of people that have been like, do you want to go do this? I don't know who you are. Like, people just message me like, you're a dancer? Okay, let's go dance together. Like, that is the intention that we should be leading with. Let's all grow together. But
yes,
the podcast is coming to an end. But as we do in podcast fashion in the process of healing, bro, I can't talk. I clearly can't talk today. So you have to give us two songs.
Two songs.
And an inspirational quote. Last season I gave 2 songs too. We're gonna see about that. But let's go.
So, well, let's start with the songs because I can't think of the quote right now. But so, you know, we're talking about immigrating and finding a new home, right? And I want to make a shout out to a previous episode in season 1, your episode with Michelle. I believe she chose cinematic orchestras to build a home. I will be choosing the follow-up to that song, cinematic orchestra's That Home.
Nice.
Right? You know, it's a lovely song about like just being able to build a home, right? I'm not gonna lie, I was listening to this. So another fun story. Sorry, I know we're wrapping up the episode, but we recently sold our family home in the Philippines, right? And I think that was it was a process for me to go through. You know, it's the family home that I grew up in and all of that. And I remember listening to this song and To Build a Home as well, nonstop, because, you know, I'm just thinking about like the memories that we built, not just the house that my parents built, but the the memories and all of that. You know, it's all gonna be in here
For sure.
and in here
For sure. And in photos.
and in photos. But you know, it's hard sometimes to let go of something tangible that reminds you of home.
Home. Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
So that's my first song, That Home, by the Cinematic Orchestra. Second song, this is gonna be a little bit of a switch up.
We love a switch up.
I know.
This playlist is eclectic, bro. This playlist is eclectic.
So, you know, a big, I guess, neighborhood that I lived in was at Jane and Weston. So I will be going with Drake's. I know Drake's in the news lately, but Drake's Western Road Flows. It just reminds me of the new home that I built, right? Here in Toronto. And yeah, it's a song that that I'd work out to, whatever. But,
I mean, this is, yeah.
you know, it's my new home, right?
I feel like yours is all like very compassionate.
I don't know. I tried to like really tie it in with the immigration thing
Yeah,
here.
mine is so like just on the fly because I just think like I'm in a period of my life where it's just like celebration. Like I'm celebrating such like new chapters and very big monumental ones. So I would say celebrate by. Come on, celebrate by. But
Burna Boy.
girl, get out of here! Get out of here! Burna Boy celebrate. Is that correct? I think that's correct. That's what it's called. Celebrate.
Doing?
And then I had to search on.
Okay,
this one.
listen.
No, this one.
I don't even know.
This
Okay,
one I
go on.
like. This is called Mama's Eyes,
Okay.
and by Mette. Am I saying that right? Mette.
Mhm.
And this one is important, more so that I feel like I'm like I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay, I'm living like what my mom envisioned for me. Finally, or like I think I've always made my mom proud, but just. Oh my god, I always made my mom proud, but like I just think like now I'm like authentically. And she's always said that I just always want you to live authentically yourself, and I think I'm doing that. So
Beautiful.
Mama's Eyes. Okay, that wasn't supposed to go that way, but
Shout out.
shout out Auntie Abuna. But yeah, those are my two songs. But please go check out the playlist in the Process of Healing playlist on Spotify. And thank you. Please stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.